If we are going to create a course, we're going to do it online. If you are going to be the teachers of it, and we'll explain in greater detail as we go along what it means to be a teacher of a course like this. If you're going to be doing this, what are the goals of a course? I'm Peter Bohl. Bill Kirby and I teach Society of the Rule of 12, and this course is about preparing this online version, which we call ChinaX.
So what I do is 近代当代史, both contemporary business history, but also history of PRC. Professor Bohl and I are teaching this new course on Chinese history. We've always taught a kind of a 中国通史, and my teacher, John Fairbank, 北江清教授, started this course in 1939. We teach it quite differently, but we're going to teach an online version of it. And we hope it will be successful here in China because it's not a standard history, it's our interpretation. And just like I think it would be very helpful for Americans to see American history as American history is taught in China, it might be interesting for Chinese to see how Chinese history is taught outside of China.
Can you think of any locations that we might want to try shooting? Just to, if our goal is to get a whole bunch of different options, right? And one of which is you in the studio, is the Center for Geographic Analysis, for instance, a place where we might want to go and capture the screen there, kind of in the environment where these maps are being produced?
The goal was to create a set of dynamic maps showing the historical changes of dynasties, state, and tribes through Chinese history, beginning from antiquity to the present. It was the very first step for us to rigorously bring digital technology into the design and the preparation of a course.
The idea of teaching online may mean that we have to take how we learn today, where we have courses, right? We have sections, we have papers that are due. We have to take all that stuff and sort of throw it away. In a digital environment now, we can do things that we didn't do before. Mm-hmm. We can make things available we couldn't make before, to a much broader audience than ever before. One of our goals should be to help the audience understand Chinese history. I'd really like to hear where people are from and what the reasons are that they're here.
Well, we have learners from all over the world, from India, Abkhazia, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, China, Brazil, Argentina, California, the Philippines, Germany, Spain, Chicago, Ukraine, South Africa, and Durham, North Carolina, among many, and even some here at Harvard.
Many here at Harvard, it turns out.
People wanted to know, does ChinaX cover as much ground as the undergraduate course?
ChinaX covers more ground than the undergraduate course. Many of you are, it seems, on average, you're spending 5 hours a week on a module. I have to admit that's better than Harvard students. I'm ashamed to admit. Philip, however, he's a good student, so he really works hard.
We've heard from some of you that those readings took an enormous amount of time. I think one of the challenges is always reading things in translation from a foreign place from a long time ago and trying to figure out how they express themselves when you're not used to it. We appreciate you spending the time, and both you and I are sort of used to it, and so we don't see how difficult it is anymore.
It is still difficult.
What we're trying to do often is usually trying to entertain the students, engage them, fascinate them, and then make them make some personal connection. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then also the issue of just your personal connection to this material.
You know, we're not teaching a trade, we're not teaching mathematics, we're not teaching computer science. We're teaching people about how to think about history, how to think about civilizations, about countries. And for that, shared community discussion is really essential.
This last week was our very first case study. It is really an experiment to see how we can try to translate the excitement of what goes on in a case study classroom to video.
Part of our goal here is, in fact, to make it possible for people to talk to each other. I have a colleague who said that he thought the best thing about discussion forums was that they were liberating. That for people who found themselves tucked away outside of a university, something like this is a chance for them to enter into a world of discourse and conversation. We've had some really nice quotes coming in from people.
The cultural gap is huge, and I already feel that I understand my Chinese colleagues better after these 2 weeks of ChinaX. The overview of China history, language, culture opened my eyes.
That's
So think how
wonderful.
good it is after 2 weeks, what it will be like
After 3
after
weeks.
2 years.
So I have some news for Megan. We have a Harvard grad in computer science, actually, who now lives in Beijing. He goes by the Chinese name of Shitao. And he's been producing translations of the first modules, and they are extraordinarily good. And Shitao, we're really, really grateful. And actually responses from all over the world. One of the great things that Professor Kirby and I love about this course is the fact that you are all over the world. Over 70% are outside of the United States. From the US, Australia, the Netherlands, Pakistan, Malaysia, Bulgaria, Sri Lanka, Poland, Argentina, all over the world. Our hope is that people will have a chance to see something they haven't seen before, to look at it with a clarity they haven't had before, and to learn something that they can take with them. A happy Chinese New Year. Mark Elliott is going to be joining us with a series of lectures on the Qing Dynasty. This is an opportunity for people in China to see how not only how Bill Kirby and I look at China through time, but also how around 20 other Harvard faculty in their own fields are thinking about China as well.
Certainly one of the great pleasures of teaching or studying at a place like this is the tremendous wealth of resources at our disposal.
What we've been able to do is incorporate some different perspectives on the same event,
Right.
which for me has always been what is exciting about history as a discipline.
What about the art museum?
The art museum's here, another vital resource, and then the Harvard Yanjing Library, the largest academic library for the study of East Asia. All kinds of stuff that Harvard has collected over the decades, over the centuries, that speaks to many of the things that we're talking about. So in alphabetical order, first member of our team would be Bian He. She's originally from Beijing. And then we've had Josh Freeman, David Porter, and then there's yourself, Grace.
With me today is Grace Jackson. Hi, Grace.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm very well.
Good. Grace was responsible for helping to create modules at the very beginning of Part 6 of ChinaX.
Well, as we bring ChinaX, at least its first iteration, to a close, Peter and I have a confession to make. We have not done this entire course just by ourselves. And in fact, what has been brought to you has been brought to you by an extraordinary team, a wonderful production team for ChinaX, and the core group is right here with us today. So Peter, will you introduce our comrades?
Let me begin with Tiffany Wong, who studied Chinese history and produced many of the visual explanations that you've seen on the videos. Ananda Moore, who is a video editor, editing those videos and getting them online. Liu Junjie, the reason why we are able to talk to you about what goes on in the forums is because Liu Junjie has been monitoring them, reporting to us
Helped
about
us film in China
and
as
helped
well.
us film in China as well. And Megan Morrissey, who's been organizing this all and keeping us on track and making sure that we showed up for occasions like
The
this.
producer.
The producer.
So.
And this combination of 4 people has been absolutely invaluable. Now, there are a whole bunch of students that have helped as well. Our job, in part, is to give people the very rich resources we have so they can develop feelings about China. We're not assuming that people really have very many feelings yet. They have some curiosity, they worry perhaps about China today, or they admire China today. Our job is to give them a picture of a civilization, so that just as with the Renaissance, just as about when you think of Paris or you think of Florence, you can start to say, I recognize that, I'm interested in that, but also that in the world we live in today, that the cultural resources of China can also be resources we draw upon in thinking in the present. You all have met, I think most of you have met, Adam Mitchell before. Adam began as a student with us, working with us in China as well, and he's now a graduate student here at Harvard.
I'm here with Graham Chamness, who is a doctoral student here at Harvard, who works in early medieval Chinese literature. You work with Professor Qian Xiaofei.
That's right.
Well, welcome to Office Hours 12, I believe. Is that right? 12?
Yeah,
wow.
that's right.
So there are a number of things I wanted to bring up with you. With me is Philip Gant. Philip studies Korean and Chinese history, and he's been involved with the content and the assessments we do for ChinaX. So Philip, welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
My name is Peter Bohl. If we haven't met already, it's because you've just begun the course. And I'm here with Sai Chang, who is one of the graduate students here at Harvard working on ChinaX.
With me today is Huan, and she's completing her dissertation on narratives of the Taiping Tianguo, of the Taiping revolutionary movement of the middle of the 19th century. So welcome, Huan.
Thank you, Professor Kirby.
I'm joined today by Joycelyn Eby, She's a graduate of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, working on international higher education. And now it is my great good fortune that she is a research associate at the Harvard Business School, working with me. So Joycelyn, welcome to Office Hours.
Thank you.
You know, Peter, why this is important?
Why?
Because without the students, we wouldn't be here.
That's true. And that's what education is about. And what we hope is to share something about what we've learned about China with you, and also something about how Americans are learning to think about China with you. Thanks a lot. We look forward to seeing you all in ChinaX 2.0.
It's been an honor to be with you. Take care. Shangzhou Qin Han, Shangzhou Qin Han, Sui Tang Song, Sui Tang Song, Yuan Mingqing Republic, Yuan Mingqing Republic, Mao Zedong, Mao Zedong. Shangzhou Qin Han, Shangzhou Qin Han, Sui Tang Song, Sui Tang Song, Yuan Mingqing Republic, Yuan Mingqing Republic, Mao Zedong, Mao Zedong. Shangzhou Qin Han, Shangzhou Qin Han, Sui Tang Song, Sui Tang Song, Yuan Mingqing Republic, Yuan Mingqing Republic, Mao Zedong, Mao Zedong.